What would you do if a lonely cowboy met a widow with nowhere to leave her little daughter? In the rugged American West of the 1800s, one simple act of kindness changed 3 lives forever. When the widow whispered, "I had no one to watch her," the cowboy smiled and gave an answer that neither of them would ever forget. Stay with us until the end to discover this heartwarming story of hope, family, and second chances. If you enjoy inspiring Western stories like this one, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more unforgettable tales. Now, let's get started. The crisp autumn wind swept across the wide plains of the Wyoming Territory in the fall of 1884. Golden grass swayed beneath an endless blue sky, while distant mountains stood silently against the horizon. On a modest cattle ranch several miles from the nearest town, Ethan Brooks tightened the last strand of barbed wire along a weathered fence. Life on the frontier demanded long hours and strong hands. Since his wife had passed away 3 years earlier from a winter illness, Ethan had managed the ranch alone. His days were filled with feeding horses, mending fences, and driving cattle, while his evenings ended beside a quiet fireplace where only the crackling wood answered his thoughts. Late that afternoon, a tired wagon slowly rolled down the dusty trail leading toward the ranch. The old horse pulling it looked worn from travel, and the woman holding the reins seemed just as exhausted. Ethan set down his tools and walked toward the gate. The woman stepped from the wagon with quiet dignity, despite her faded dress and patched coat. Beside her climbed a little girl of about 7 years old, clutching a small cloth doll whose stitching had nearly come apart. "Good afternoon," the woman said politely. "My name is Mary Collins." "Ethan Brooks," he replied with a respectful nod. "You look like you've come a long way." Mary hesitated before speaking again. "My husband died last winter while working on the railroad. Since then, I've traveled from town to town, searching for honest work." Her voice trembled slightly, though she tried to remain composed. "The laundry in Willow Creek has offered me a position beginning tomorrow. It's enough to keep food on the table." She lowered her eyes toward the little girl standing quietly beside her. "But," she whispered, "I had no one to watch her. They told me children aren't allowed inside the laundry, and I cannot afford anyone to care for her." The little girl looked down at her worn boots, trying to hide her fear. Ethan knelt until he was at eye level with her. "And what's your name, young lady?" "Emma," she answered softly. He smiled warmly before standing again. "Then she can join us," Ethan said without hesitation. Mary looked at him in complete surprise. "You would trust a stranger with your ranch?" Ethan glanced toward the open fields where the horses grazed peacefully beneath the evening sun. "Out here," he said calmly, "a person learns that kindness is worth more than suspicion." For the first time in many months, a gentle smile appeared on Emma's face, and Mary realized they had found far more than a place to stop. They had found the beginning of a new life. The following morning, the first rays of sunlight stretched across the Wyoming prairie as Mary left for Willow Creek with renewed hope. Before climbing into the borrowed wagon, she knelt beside Emma and gently brushed a loose strand of hair from her face. "Be polite, listen to Mr. Brooks, and I'll return before sunset," she said. Emma nodded with a small smile. Ethan tipped his hat. "Don't worry, Mrs. Collins, she'll be just fine." As the wagon disappeared down the dusty road, Ethan turned to the little girl. "How about meeting the horses first?" Emma's eyes brightened. Together they walked through the ranch, feeding chickens, collecting fresh eggs, and carrying hay to the horses. Ethan patiently showed her how to brush an old chestnut mare named Daisy, and before long Emma's nervousness faded into cheerful laughter. For the first time since losing her father, she felt safe. Days turned into weeks, and the ranch slowly came alive again. Every morning, Mary worked at the laundry while Emma stayed with Ethan, helping with small chores and learning the ways of ranch life. She eagerly gathered firewood, watered the vegetable garden, and rode beside Ethan whenever he checked the cattle. The lonely silence that had once filled the ranch was replaced by the happy sound of a child's laughter. One cold evening, after the day's work was finished, the three of them sat around the warm fireplace. Emma reached into her pocket and carefully unfolded a small piece of paper. On it was a simple drawing made with charcoal. It showed a little ranch house with three smiling figures standing together beneath a bright sun. "I made this today," Emma whispered shyly. Ethan studied the picture before asking gently, "Who's the man?" Emma smiled. "That's you. And these?" "You, Mama, for and me. That's my family." Mary could no longer hold back her tears. "You've given us more than a roof over our heads," she said quietly. "You gave us a reason to believe tomorrow could be better." Ethan looked at the glowing fire before answering. "No one should have to face the frontier alone." When spring arrived, the little church in Willow Creek filled with neighbors who had watched their friendship grow into love. Beneath clear western skies, Ethan and Mary exchanged simple wedding vows. Emma proudly stood between them, holding both of their hands with the brightest smile in the room. From that day forward, the once lonely ranch became a true home. The cowboy found the family he never expected. The widow found hope after heartbreak, and little Emma finally found the father she had been praying for.